Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Page Chewing Comics and Manga, Pick of the Week. This is episode number 37. I'm Mike, and I'm here with my friend Steve. We've got another episode. I think we've had a lot of really good reads, maybe not 100%. But we're really excited to talk with you today. If you're joining us for the first time, we had a hiatus of not reading comics for a while, and now not with this being the 37th episode, we're getting back into the swing of things, and so we're not completely lost in this world of going to the brick and mortar comic store and mostly. In some cases, we're reading digital comics, but we have our pull list, which is also kind of a subtitle for this podcast, weekly pulls. So before we get started, I thought I'd ask you how you've been doing. How was your week, Steve?
Not too bad. Still getting over this lingering cold. I think we're both still trying to get over the cold, but overall, not too bad. I think it's funny we talked about being back into the swing of things, and some weeks I feel like we are, and then some weeks I pick up a Marvel or DC book and I feel completely lost because they reference a lot of things that I have no idea what they're talking about. So
yeah,
some weeks I feel like we're getting in the swing of things, and some weeks I feel lost. But overall, I think we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, and I think we have a few where we overlapped again, maybe two or three. So that's always fun. And so I'm trying to think, like, as to what you just said. There was maybe one or two where I was kind of lost, and I had to go back because even though it wasn't that long ago, I didn't remember where we were headed with the storyline. And that's the first one that I'm going to talk about, which I really am. I'm enjoying this series, which is called Crave, and that's by Image Comics. This is number 5, and I feel like these are being put out quite frequently. But there was a big kind of turning point in number 4, I think, where we learned a little bit more about what the Crave app is doing, but then at the beginning of this issue, I was kind of like, what are they trying to do here? Anyway, so I had to go back. I had to reread number 4, which didn't take long, but I'm still really enjoying the very Spartan imagery and limited color palette. It's working for me. It shows you that you don't necessarily need some huge, production value, at least not for me. So there is some attempt, in this one to maybe I don't want to give this away, but to do something with the app, with the Crave app. But I get the sense that could easily backfire, possibly for our cast of characters here. We're all pretty much, I think they're all college students, if I'm not mistaken. But the big thing that is mentioned here is a new, I guess it's called collaboration mode. Yeah. And that really leads to some pretty big problems for people. And I just enjoyed this, and I find this to be a good page turner, as well as it, even though it has some kind of social commentary, as we've talked about before. But as I was, I felt like I read through this rather quickly, and just was turning the pages, wanting to see what was going to happen next. And they keep kind of ending with kind of like a cliffhanger. But I really enjoyed this one. What did you think?
I agree. I think the artwork, it's very sparse, and there's also some panels that not even side characters, just characters who are in the panel who we don't know that they're faceless. And I think this is like no features. This is like a blank face. And I think that kind of speaks to the overall tone and theme of the book, is that the characters are so wrapped up in what they're doing, and they're so wrapped up in their own lives and the Crave app, that they really don't see anyone else. They just see the people that they're interacting with, and everyone else is almost like a faceless, non-existent person. I'm guessing it was intentional, not just because they didn't have time to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the panels, I think that was on purpose. It strikes me as the kind of book that those things aren't an accident, that those are done for a reason. I was pretty sure this was like commentary on social media and kind of it's the way it can really influence us. And after this issue, I'm 99% sure that's what this is.
Mm-hmm.
I think the comments, the way that the people, they receive these comments on the app about, the one woman is talking about killing herself, and that there's people who are encouraging her. It strikes me as kind of the internet culture, social media culture that we live in right now, and the amount of power that we give it, and the amount of weight that we allow it to have over us and over our decision making, and just and also the way that there's like a shenanigans that two people get into in this issue, that they do something really dumb and they think it's just a great time, but they realize that they really put everyone else in danger when then something else happens. And I think that it kind of struck me like as a dumb TikTok video that somebody does to be funny, doesn't realize that it's just not a very smart thing to do when you think about it. But they get so wrapped up in the app and what the app tells them to do, or what the comments tell them to do, and
right.
just we look into social media for like a mirror, and we look into it for validation and for our own self-worth, when really it's really nothing. So I think it's really, really, really great. I think it's really well done, and I'm pretty encouraged that lately I've been let down by final issues on limited series. It seems like sticking the landing hasn't been the easiest for some, but I'm feeling pretty confident that this will wrap up. This will have a satisfactory ending. So I'm excited to see where the last issue goes. And like you mentioned, this has been released pretty quick.
Yeah.
So we might get it within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
I
would
so.
guess.
Yep, definitely. I agree with a lot of pretty much everything you just said, and maybe I think you and I both don't have like big social media presence. I think I'm concerned for how algorithms, I mean, it's not that present in this issue or this series, if you will, but it's because it's kind of, the stuff kind of plays out in real life. But essentially, these people are being driven by some dumb app, without really, like you said, without really thinking about it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to kind of take a step back in the way that it's presented as like this dating app, or this it's not even really a dating app. It's like this app to fulfill your desires, and the way that some people look to social media to fulfill those desires and kind of let it influence us and let it, impact our lives. So yeah, I think it's really, really, really well done. So I've really, really enjoyed this series. I hope it wraps up. I hope it sticks to landing.
Yeah, me too.
So the next one for me is Antarctica number 10. This is a book that I've been kind of hanging on to for a long time. I think I started issue 1, but it dropped. And the art's been solid throughout the series. I've been hanging on, but I'm starting to lose interest in this one. I find myself not really caring about a lot of the characters, not really feeling attached to them, other than our main character, Hannah. The rest I just don't really care about. There was a death in this one that I didn't really bat an eye at it. I found myself not really caring about it. I just, whether the characters are good or bad, good or evil, I'm just finding a hard time. I think it's because I'm more focused on characters most of the time than I am plot. And maybe that's part of it. I'm still hanging on, but I'm going to give it another issue or 2. And then if it doesn't really capture me, then I'll have to throw in the towel. So I'm still hanging in, but by a thread.
Okay. Yeah. Is that something, when you said you were hanging on to it, does it mean you maybe picked it up because I have a few cases where I pick something up and I don't get to it. Maybe because I'm not feeling the series as much. Did it come out like last month, or just out of curiosity?
No, I think it was this week. I've been pretty consistent with it, but I think it just I think I keep getting my hopes up that this will, because there has been a couple of issues that really I felt like really good about it, but out of the 10, I think it's been like 2 or 3 that have really kind of put wind in my sails with it, and it's starting to lose me a little bit. And there comes a point with these kind of stories that they keep presenting more mysteries and more questions and more mysteries and more questions. That at some point you have to start answering some questions. You have to start answering these things. And I'm just not gaining traction for me. So I'll give it another issue or 2. And then if it doesn't really impress me, then I'll have to pack up.
Okay. So continuing the trend of kind of maybe feeling a little bit, this is really just for the first 2 that I'm covering, feeling a little bit lost because I think the last time I read Gumna, which is, we have number 4 here, and this is from Titan Comics. I feel like it was a while since I read issue number 3, but I feel like there might have been like a time jump. I really felt maybe I missed something, or did I possibly not read? Did I possibly only read number 1 and 2? But no, I did read number 3. So I feel like something got really ramped up here in the story. So the main character is named Khalida, and it's a really interesting premise, I think, in a lot of ways. At least for me, she's like a nun assassin but she's also got like some weird supernatural abilities. But all of a sudden we have, these kind of zombie type of characters coming, which was referred to in issue 1, but it's not really explained very well. I think that's done on purpose. But I believe they're referred to as Magi or Magi, Maagi is how it's spelled. So that usually means something else. Usually means like a sorcerer or wizard or something. But anyway, I felt a little bit lost, but she's basically come up at Khalida, this main character, has become like a very powerful individual, and she's referred to as like a lord here. So it's just really a lot of stuff going on in right now, and there's also a lot more dialogue than I'd seen before, which is not necessarily the strong suit for Gumna, and that's because the artwork remains beautiful, excellent, A+ for me. I really like what they do with light as well, light and dark. The juxtaposition, the composition works for me. So I'm kind of torn on this one. I really like the premise, but I'm just really confused now. So I'm going to continue and see what happens next. And that's probably because I continue to appreciate the work that's going into the visuals.
We talked a little bit on the forum about this, about the visuals and how much we're willing to do, or how much leeway we're willing to give a book if we enjoy the visuals or enjoy the artwork or the covers even. Because I mentioned if a book has a really good cover, sometimes I just want to read it, even if it doesn't sound like something I'm going to enjoy. Just fall in love with the cover and just hope that it'll work out.
It's interesting because the author Ji-Hyun Lee, I'm probably mispronouncing it, he's like an expert as a cover artist. So he does the covers. I don't think he does the interior pages. I could be wrong on that, but they're quite good. I agree with you. I will say it's not that much of a time investment though. So I felt like I read this in less than 5 minutes, which Usually takes me a lot longer to read through these.
It is wild when you think about reading a novel and investing 12 to 15 hours into it, and you can read a comic book. And some of them, it depends on the book, of course, but sometimes it is a quick read, and it's a lot less time investment. So, yeah. Will you continue with Gumna?
Yes, I am. I'm going to stick with it for now. Yeah, for sure. I'm going to continue.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'd like to. You never know. Terrible answer.
No, sometimes it doesn't grab you next time.
But I'm planning on it. Yeah.
So I have two. The first one will be really quick because it's Deadpool 1. I don't know why. I try to pick up a Marvel or DC book, and Marvel I feel like has this house style of artwork. And I know it's different people. I know it's not the same person. I know it's not. There seems to be a kind of a constant. A lot of the books I've picked up, they seem very similar in the art and the tone, the feel, the colors. And same thing with Deadpool 1. Deadpool, I remember way back when Deadpool was first introduced, and I thought he was the coolest looking character. And after the movies, I feel like Deadpool, the character, changed. It changed from kind of a rough around the edges kind of character, like this ruthless character. And I think now it's just a version of Ryan Reynolds because of the movies. And I guess the movies were successful. So I get a lot of the versions now in the books is Ryan Reynolds basically on the page. But I just couldn't get into it. About 20% in, I just completely lost interest. I just did not care. It just didn't capture me. The humor didn't work for me. I was completely checked out. And we talk about how quick a comic book read is. So within a couple of minutes, I just didn't care at all. Nothing captured me about it. Nothing at all. So unfortunately, it's a dead for me on Deadpool 1. But of course, humor we've talked about on the podcast before. I'm very picky about humor. I usually like the crude humor when it's done right, but I just didn't care at all.
Yeah. It happens.
Yeah. So speaking of Marvel or DC, the other DC book I picked up this week was Kneel Before Zod 4. I feel like the series has been fairly consistent. Zod goes Zod in this issue, and he's out for vengeance. He discovers something that surprises him along the way, and the events in this book and the previous book, I feel like really changed the trajectory of what I thought this series would be. And I think it's in a good way. I think things are going to the direction it's going, it will be more interesting than what I thought it would be. And I'm trying to be very vague here without spoiling it, but I still really enjoy the art. The art's really grown on me. I wasn't crazy about it at first, but really grown to like it. And yeah, I have no idea where it's going. And I just love the Zod character. We've talked about evil Superman and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm on board with this one. I'm anxious to see where it goes.
Yeah, that was one that I've been following, and for whatever reason, this is one of the challenges. I've really primarily tried to get the physical, comics, and it didn't show up, and it wasn't pulled for me for some reason. So I'll have to see if I can grab the digital maybe before number 3 comes out, so I catch up with you. Or sorry, this is not number 2. This is number 4. Okay, yeah, sorry about that. And I've read the others, so curious to see where it's headed.
That really goofy event in issue 3 still bothers me. We talked about the little that didn't really make sense. That still kind of bugs me, but overall, I think it's been pretty good.
Yeah. Speaking of good, this the next one I'm going to speak about is Somna number 2, and Steve and I really appreciated number 1. It's like a supersized comic. It's maybe 30% larger than your typical comic. It's got two styles of artwork. So, when the main character is, or I should say, when a character is dreaming or in some kind of dream state, it's a one type of more airy, ethereal, almost like oil on canvas artwork. And then when she's in the character is in the real world, so to speak, it's a totally different style, more like a more classic comic style, but also very beautiful. And that's really, I really appreciated that juxtaposition. I think I already used that word, but it's okay. Just a quote that I pulled from the beginning: "Night always ends and dreams fade like plumes of smoke after a fire." So just to say, the writing is it really helps set the tone, and the kind of sets you up for what's happening in the story. And I, just as a quick recap, because it's been quite a while since we read number one. In the first issue, a witch is burned at the stake for consorting with the devil. So my question is that what's going to happen to, I think her name is Ingrid. And I'm not going to give that away. She without going into too much detail, because this it does get rather steamy here. I would say, and it's done in a very tasteful way, but there is a fair amount of nudity happening here with multiple characters. There's something very interesting happening with Ingrid and this kind of devil character, but also that's not the only story. There's other sides. There's other stories and even worse things happening to other characters. So it's definitely much more complex. And there's some really good imagery, other imagery as well, like the more religious imagery. I don't want to give too much away here because I know Steve hasn't read it, and I know he's planning to. But I have to really wonder who this mysterious blue devil-like character really is, because that's not been explained well. I don't even know if they've given his name. But there's a lot of great things going on here. I don't have too many complaints really at all. I didn't take note of anything. Maybe in some ways there, you think it's going in one way that could be predictable. I'm wondering if I'm predicting what's going to happen next, and then I might be a little bit let down. I am in possession of issue number 3, so I'll be able to know very soon. I'm really enjoying the series. And I have to shout out the name of the authors, Becky Cloonan and Tula Lotte, because they're just killing it. And this is by Distillery, and I don't read anything else by them. I think they're very small. So I just want to mention those names.
Yeah, apologies for that. I wanted to, this is one of those books that I really wanted to take my time with. And the week just got away from me.
Oh, no, that's okay.
I don't want to rush through it. But no, I know we've talked about doing like a kind of an in-depth kind of discussion about this series. And I've looked into other Distillery books just because I enjoyed this one so much. And those other books that I'm really interested in that they're publishing. So, and I really want the collected edition on the shelf once it's ready. I think it's released in a few months, but I'm really looking forward to having the physical collected edition of this series when it's done.
Great.
Definitely not a book to read on public transport, though.
No. Not at all. No.
Do you? I know the first issue we talked about kind of similarities to other forms of entertainment. Did this one reinforce those? I think we talked about The Witch, and there was another movie or two we discussed.
So I never saw The Witch.
Oh, okay.
So I wish now I'd like to. The one thing that I thought of, which you covered on, I believe you've covered on your film channel, is called Come True. And that's when, and I think the characters sees these like, or these, the several characters see these like weird, dreamy things at the side of their bed, and they don't know if they're dead or alive or sleeping. Yeah, so that kind of reminded me of that a little bit in some way. But now with the issue number 2, it reminds me less. And that's a film probably that not too many people have seen, but it's a good one.
Yeah, it is a good one. Yeah, it's not a very well known book, or not a very well known film, but yeah, pretty good. Yeah. Yes. How many is Somna? 4 issues, or is it 3 total?
I think it's only 3, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay. So the next one is the One Hand number 3 by Image Comics. This is a very dark and dreary detective story. The detective is someone who's tortured over past experiences. He's trying to kind of redeem himself for some mistakes he's made. It hits all the boxes for me. It just checks all those. I love kind of the tortured detective, gritty kind of cop stories where they're just, dragging themselves out of bed every day, just trying to do the right thing and torture from their past history. And it just really hit it on the point. I love the artwork. It really fits the story. It fits kind of the tone of the whole book. And yeah, it's probably one of my favorite books being printed right now. So when I finished it, I thought this is for sure my pick of the week. But then, of course, I read another book after that. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, The One Hand is just a pleasant surprise. I picked it up on accident because I thought it was the Six Fingers and realized that they are connected. But so yeah, it's a very fortunate misstep that turned into one of my favorite books, like I said, being released now.
Wow. So you kind of tipped us off to our picks of the week, and I'm going to put forward Geiger number 1. I think this is volume 2. And I think maybe a month or so ago, I talked about this like shared universe with all these new characters that are being released by Image Comics. And this is, Jeff Johns' work, which I think we've talked about before, and we like his work and other things that he's done. And I think I believe Gary Frank is the artist here. And I got to start off with the artwork. I really appreciate the artwork for some reason. It's very clean in a lot of ways, and it can be very striking. So, the main character is the titular Geiger, but he's also known as the glowing man. So he's like, it can be very striking when he takes his true form of being this, glowing radioactive Marie Curie times 1,000 or whatever. So I just have to say I really appreciate the artwork, and I was not expecting to like this. So I think this is one of the reasons why it's my pick of the week, because I really did appreciate it. And this is 25 years in the future, I believe, from the previous story. And, the glowing man continues to wander the radioactive wasteland that is what's left of the Earth. In this issue, he makes a new buddy, like a sidekick. And I thought I didn't expect that. And everything is very dark and dour, and there's a little bit of hope here. And for people that like Walter White from Breaking Bad, he's kind of like a cancer survivor, and he's talks about his family. So there's some, some parallels there, or similarities, if you will. I just didn't expect to enjoy this. There's not a lot of story going on. There's a lot more visual, and maybe just not as much words or dialogue, but I thought it was a good, entry point for this next volume. And I read the first volume, so I'm going to stick with this one for sure.
Wow. That's an endorsement. Yeah, I have the first volume on the shelf. I just haven't read it yet. I need to catch up. I think they're launching a few other books, right? I think there's like a shared universe kind of being launched.
Yes, yeah. One of the ones that came out is called, the character is called the Rook. He's like a like a bird, like a crow character, and I think, and I was not able to pick that one up, but I think there's another one called Redcoat, which is not for me. It's like a Revolutionary War character that still wears his uniform from back in the day, from the 16th century or whatever. So I did see that one, but I did not go for that one. Yeah, so maybe they're all going to meet up again. So I might be lost, but I'm just sticking with this one for now.
Nice. So we talked a little. This is one that we both read this week, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Which is The Sacrificers, number 7. I was excited to see it back on the shelf. I know they took a break, I think, for a month or two. I just thought this was a beautiful story. There's, of course, the artwork. I have to talk about the artwork. It felt like it was a little bit different for me. It felt a little bit grainier, and the color palette was a little bit faded, a little bit more muted, not as vibrant. It felt a little bit like dark, and I think that it was. I'm assuming it was done intentionally because of the story, because of the kind of the feel of this book. I think of this issue. I think it wanted to be a little bit more muted and not as vibrant. But I thought it was fantastic. It has a very covers lots of ground. I think it covers, the story kind of touches on life and aging and regret and moving on and loss. And I think it just a really beautiful story. I just love the writing was fantastic as usual, but Remender's always, he's pretty consistent, but this had a very different feel to it than other things that I've read of his. And it at least for this long, it felt very, very focused. And it felt this from beginning to end, it felt like there was a certain tone and tenor that they wanted to go for. And I just thought it was, it was different than what I'm used to, but I was really impressed with what they were able to pull off, and it was worth the wait. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on number 7.
Yes, I think it was worth the wait, and I'm just enamored with Max Fiumara's work. I think it's wonderful. I think hearing you talk, I have a little bit different appreciation, because what I would describe this as, because they do kind of rehash a little bit what's happened, but it's kind of like the whole thing is kind of narrated basically, and then we see a fair amount of it shows us kind of what's happening with Soluna, who's the daughter of these two gods, I believe. And kind of like the aftermath of the decision that her mother made. And so, but I didn't feel like I felt like I wanted to know more about what was happening with that. It's just, so for me, this was served more or less as like an interlude, maybe to lead up into the next kind of big arc, if you will. Because like you said, they took a break after the first 6 issues. And so I do feel like it is a tonal shift as well, and not very happy. The part that's narrated is like basically what the mother has conveyed to the daughter, like, and I think I really respect the mother. I think her name is Luna. What she did, because she basically went against, being beautiful, and she went against everybody else. And so this, like you said, it's, there's some kind of deeper stuff going on here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a surface level story. There's some really interesting themes here about holding on to your values versus going with what everybody else, the people around you that are more into their kind of materialistic values, or maybe even lack of values. But then what happens to the rest of the world? Anyway, so I'm very curious where this is going, but it's definitely dark, and not for it's certainly not for children. I really, even though there's,
No.
But it's really well done. So I don't have too many complaints. I think I felt like it was, because there was a lot of narration, that I maybe wanted more story, if you will, but there's a lot of visual story. So I probably want to maybe go through it again.
I think describing it as an interlude is a really great way to describe this one. It did feel like an interlude for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that until you mentioned it, but yeah, I definitely agree. It did feel kind of a bridge to something else, to the next arc. So yeah, perfect way to describe it.
I think that's about all we have this time. I think that wraps us up pretty much. It was a pretty good week. I'm overall quite pleased, and I went to the comic book store. I went to the comic book store today, and I have quite a few to talk about next week. So,
oh, nice,
yeah,
cool. I haven't gone. I've been trying to go on Wednesdays, but because we record on Wednesdays, and I try to go it doesn't always work out. But yeah, there's some ones that I'm excited for this week. There's one that like a 2099 Spawn, essentially like a 2099 Spawn. That's kind of in the future that I'm curious about.
Oh wow!
So yeah, there's a couple that are kind of calling my name. So hopefully, fingers crossed for next week. That'll wrap up episode 37. Is there anything else you had for us, Mike? Or
no? I will say on a side note, I am reading the Sandman series just for the hell of it. I didn't think I was going to like it. I am absolutely loving it. I've read the first 2 volumes. I've just kind of been doing it on my own. I have not watched the series, so I'm really glad that I started reading them. It's just it's just amazing work that Neil Gaiman did. So with that, I think it's still going. I don't know.
I think there's kind of side stories going on, but yeah, I have the first collected edition, the hardcover on the shelf, waiting for our friend Varsha to clear his time out of her schedule so we can start the group read.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we'll plan to do that hopefully here soon. But yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, so we're also reading Blame, the manga. And so yeah, we'll be discussing that series here the next month or two, maybe. But yeah, other than that, if you'd like to reach either of us, we can be found on the Page Chewing forums. If you're not already there, if you haven't, just register for an account. And I try to check several times a day to see if there's any new registrations, and I'll approve you as long as you're not a bot or, a weirdo, which, you'd fit right in, I guess. But so yeah, just be patient with me, and I'll try and approve your membership and come by and talk about comics, or tell us how wrong we are about whatever it is we talked about. Tell me how wrong I am about Deadpool. I'd love to chat about it. But yeah, come and say hi. You can also send us either of us a DM, or we have a club there for the podcast if you'd like to kind of say hello or just chat with us and shoot the shit. We'll always enjoy it. So I guess until next week, we will talk to everyone very soon.
Bye-bye.